Gingrich, this next one's for you. You've criticized extending unemployment benefits, saying that you are, quote, opposed to giving people money for doing nothing. Benefits have already been extended to 99 weeks, and they are set to expire soon. If you were president today, would you extend unemployment benefits? And if not, how do you justify that to the millions of unemployed Americans who are looking in earnest and whose families are depending on those checks?
Well, what I've said is that I think unemployment compensation should be tied directly to a training program. And if you don't have a job and you need help, then in order for us to give you the help, you should sign up for a business-led training program so that that 99 weeks becomes an investment in human capital, giving us the best trained workforce in the world so you can get a job. But I believe it is fundamentally wrong to give people money for 99 weeks for doing nothing. That's why we had welfare reform. Frankly, the easiest thing for Congress to do if the President sends up a proposed extension is to allow all 50 states to experiment at the state level with developing a mandatory training component of unemployment compensation, so you'd have 50 parallel experiments and not pretend that Washington knows best or that Washington can solve the problem by itself. But I believe deeply people should not get money for doing nothing.
When Speaker Gingrich was asked if he believes President Obama is a socialist, he responded, quote, "Sure, of course he is." Do you, Governor Romney? Every day, the federal government takes in about $6 billion, but spends about 10. Right? So we borrow 40 cents of every dollar we spend. Now, I understand that you believe that if we modernize the federal government, then it'll help a lot. It'll save billions. But given the resistance that we've seen in Washington, the seeming intractable resistance we've seen in Washington to spending cuts, how can you possibly slash spending by 40%? How can you do it?
Well, the way you described the question, you can't.
So that's it.
I mean,
stick up working us.
If you assume Washington remains the way Washington is right now, it's all hopeless. We might as well buy Greek bonds and go down together.
How do you get us past that?
Next Thursday in Des Moines, I'm going to outline a 21st century contract with America. It's going to be far bolder, far deeper, far more profound than what we did in 1994 or what I helped Jack Kemp and Ronald Reagan do in 1980. It's important to remember, this month in the Reagan administration, September 1983, we created 1,100,000 new jobs. Obama's socialist policies, class warfare and bureaucratic socialism, we created 0 in August. I believe with leadership we can balance the budget. I did it for 4 consecutive years. We went from $2.2 trillion projected deficit over a decade to $2.7 trillion projected surplus when I left. I think it is doable, but it takes real leadership.
Hi, I'm Stella Lohman from Atlanta, Georgia. I've taught in both public and private schools and now as a substitute teacher. I see administrators more focused on satisfying federal mandates, retaining funding, and trying not to get sued, while the teachers are jumping through hoops trying to serve up a one-size-fits-all education for their students. What, as president, would you seriously do about what I consider a massive overreach of big government into the classroom? Thank you.
I think you need very profound reform in education at the state level. You need to dramatically shrink the Federal Department of Education, get rid of virtually all of its regulations. And the truth is, I believe we'd be far better off if most states adopted a program of the equivalent of Pell Grants for K through 12, so that parents could choose where their child went to school, whether it was public or private or homeschooling, and parents could be involved. Florida has a virtual school program that is worth the entire country studying, as an example.
Mr. Speaker, should employers be required to use E-Verify?
Well, let me say, first of all, I think that we'd be far better off to outsource E-Verify to American Express, MasterCard, or Visa, because they actually know how to run a program like that without massive fraud. Second, the program should be as easy as swiping your credit card when you buy gasoline. And so I would ask of employers, what is it you would object to in helping the United States of America in dealing with a problem involving illegal immigration? But in addition, I want to reinforce what Congressman Bachmann said. I strongly favor 100% control of the border, and I strongly favor English as the official language of government. And I favor modernizing the legal visa system to make it far more convenient, far easier, and far more practical here in Orlando, where we have a huge interest in people being able to visit easily for tourism. We have a terribly antiquated legal system, while our border is too open for people who are illegal.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Speaker Gingrich, many of the foreign policy questions we received had directly to do with the U.S. economy as well when it came to the topic of foreign aid. Butch Russell had the top voted video question in the section of foreign policy.
When are we going to get someone in the White House that can stand up to these other countries and say, you're not getting any more of our money? This is stupid. We send billions of dollars overseas to countries that hate us.
Speaker Gingrich.
I actually think there's a lot to that, and I've been a strong supporter of international assistance, but I think there are a couple of good reasons to review the whole program. First of all, I'd replace virtually all government-to-government aid with some kind of investment approach that encouraged American companies to create jobs that made both the United States and the other country wealthier. Our bureaucrats giving their bureaucrats money is a guaranteed step towards corruption. Second, I think when you have countries that vote against you in the United Nations consistently, you really have to ask yourself, why are you giving them anything? I mean, if they're not your ally, why are you have a... We came out of World War II with the generosity that made perfect sense when we had 50% of the world economy. And it was a different world. And we need to understand how different it is. But I want to go back to your question on Pakistan, because I think people need to understand how real this is. This world is in danger of becoming dramatically more dangerous in the not-too-distant future. People talk about an Iranian weapon. There may be well over 100 nuclear weapons in Pakistan, and the example you used is not too far-fetched to worry about.
Speaker Gingrich, thank you. Are you going to turn this country around? Speaker Gingrich.
32 years ago, we were in the same place. We had a failing president. He gave a speech on malaise. People wrote about the presidency being too big. Nobody could do it. The Soviet Union was an offense. And a leader came along. He said, when your brother-in-law is unemployed, it's a recession. When you're unemployed, it's a depression. When Jimmy Carter's unemployed, it's a recovery. Nothing will turn America around more than election night when Barack Obama loses decisively.
If you had to choose a running mate, one of the people on the stage with you, who would you choose and why?
It should be someone who would follow through on what you promised the American public to do.
You have 8 to choose.
And I would say that, right now that, the guy that I'm agreeing with most up on stage is probably the guy to my left. So I would say that Newt Gingrich would be the guy that I would pick as someone who would follow through with what I'm saying.
Speaker Gingrich.
Yeah, I'm going to disappoint those in the audience who want this to be a Hollywood game. I don't have any idea who I would pick as the vice presidential nominee. What I do know is it would have to be a person capable of being president of the United States, and that would be the first criteria. These are all good friends of mine. I couldn't imagine hurting any of their feelings by choosing one tonight.
I don't know how you would do this, but if you could take Herman Cain and made him up with Newt Gingrich, I think you would have a couple of really interesting guys to work with. I don't know how you do it.
Probably go with Speaker Gingrich, who I have the greatest admiration for in all seriousness because of his history and because of his depth of knowledge.